My landlord illegally evicted me and stole my belongings worth $43,000. I'm retired judge who destroyed him. My landlord changed the locks while I was visiting my daughter, throwing all my possessions in a dumpster. He thought I'd abandoned the apartment. He wanted to rent it to someone else at a higher price. He threw away family heirlooms, furniture, photo albums, irreplaceable items worth $43,000. He thought I was just another elderly tenant who wouldn't fight back. He forgot I spent 31 years as a superior court judge specializing in landlord-tenant law and civil procedure. I'm Marion Blackwell, 78 years old. This is the story of how my landlord committed illegal eviction and destroyed my property, and how I used my judicial expertise to destroy his real estate business and send him to jail for 1 year. I'd lived in my apartment in Oakland, California for 12 years, a rent-controlled 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. My rent was $1,450 per month, far below market rate for the area. My landlord, Derek Sullivan, inherited the building from his father in 2018. Derek was 39, a real estate investor who owned 7 rental properties in the Bay Area. Derek hated rent control. He constantly complained that my low rent was costing him money. Marion, you're paying 1970s prices. Market rate for this unit is $2,800. You're essentially stealing from me. I have a legal rent-controlled lease, Derek. The rent can only increase by the allowed percentage each year. Derek would mutter and walk away, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. In 2021, Derek started pressuring me to move out. Marion, you're 76 years old. This building has stairs. Wouldn't you be more comfortable in a senior living facility? I'm perfectly comfortable here. I could help you find a nice place. Maybe even give you some moving money. I'm not moving, Derek. He tried offering me cash. I'll give you $5,000 to break your lease and move out voluntarily. No. $10,000? Derek, I'm not leaving. This is my home. Derek's frustration grew. He started showing up unannounced, claiming he needed to inspect the apartment. California law requires 24-hour notice for non-emergency inspections, but Derek ignored that. I'd spent 31 years as a superior court judge. 23 of those years, I'd presided over landlord-tenant disputes. I knew tenant rights better than most attorneys. Derek, you cannot enter my apartment without 24-hour written notice unless there's an emergency. If you continue these illegal entries, I'll file a complaint with the rent board. Derek backed off, but the tension remained. In March 2022, my daughter Emily invited me to visit her in Portland for 2 weeks. She just had a baby, my first great-grandchild, and wanted me to help with the new baby. I was excited. I told Derek I'd be gone for 2 weeks. Derek, I'm traveling to Portland from March 10th through March 24th. To visit my daughter. Here's my contact information if there's any emergency with the apartment. Derek nodded. Okay, have a good trip. I left on March 10th. I paid my April rent before leaving. I was always paid up on time. I spent 2 wonderful weeks with Emily, helping with the baby, cooking meals, enjoying family time. On March 24th, I flew back to Oakland. I took an Uber from the airport to my apartment building. When I arrived, I couldn't get into the building. My key didn't work. I tried again. The lock had been changed. Confused, I called Derek. No answer. I went to the building manager's unit. The manager, Carlos, looked uncomfortable when he saw me. Marion, you're back. Of course I'm back. My key doesn't work. Did Derek change the locks? Carlos looked away. Marion, Derek said you'd abandoned the apartment. He had us change the locks last week. My heart stopped. Abandoned? I told him I was visiting my daughter for 2 weeks. I paid my rent. How is that abandonment? Derek said you'd been gone for over a month and stopped responding to contact attempts. He said you'd moved out without notice. That's a lie. I've been gone exactly 2 weeks. I told him I'd be back today. Carlos looked miserable. Marion, I'm sorry. Derek had us empty your apartment. Everything was thrown away. I felt dizzy. Everything? My furniture? My belongings? Derek had a crew empty the apartment 5 days ago. They put everything in the dumpster. The dumpster was picked up 3 days ago. Everything I owned was gone. Furniture, clothes, kitchenware, books. But worse, photo albums from my 46-year marriage to my late husband, family heirlooms, jewelry, irreplaceable items. I called Derek immediately. This time he answered. Derek, I just got back to Oakland. My apartment has been emptied. What did you do? Derek's voice was cold. Marion, you abandoned the apartment. You were gone for over a month with no contact. California law allows landlords to reclaim abandoned units. I was gone for 2 weeks. I told you exactly when I'd be back. I paid my rent. How is that abandonment? You didn't respond to my attempts to contact you. What attempts? You never contacted me. I sent notices to the apartment. You didn't respond. I wasn't there. I was visiting my daughter, exactly as I told you I would be. Derek's tone became dismissive. Look, the apartment is vacant now. Your lease is terminated. If you want to retrieve any belongings, you're too late. The dumpster was emptied 3 days ago. I suggest you find somewhere else to live. He hung up. I stood on the street, shaking with rage and shock. Everything I owned was gone. My home was gone. I had the clothes I'd packed for Portland and nothing else. Most people would have panicked. Most elderly tenants would have been devastated and helpless. But I wasn't most people. I'm Marion Blackwell. I spent 31 years as a superior court judge. I specialized in landlord-tenant law. I'd ruled on hundreds of illegal eviction cases. I knew exactly what Derek had done, and I knew exactly what laws he'd violated. California has strict laws protecting tenants from illegal eviction. What Derek did was called self-help eviction, changing locks and removing a tenant's belongings without a court order. It's illegal, completely, absolutely illegal. Even if a tenant actually abandons an apartment, landlords must follow specific legal procedures. They must send proper notices. They must store belongings for a required period. They must obtain a court order before evicting anyone. Derek had done none of that. He'd simply decided I was gone, changed the locks, and thrown away everything I owned. That's not just illegal eviction. It's theft. It's destruction of property. It's elder abuse, and I was going to destroy him for it. First, I needed shelter. I called Emily. Mom, what's wrong? I explained everything. Emily was furious. Mom, come back to Portland. Stay with us while you figure this out. No, I'm staying in Oakland. I'm fighting this. Mom, you just lost everything. Emily, I was a judge for 31 years. I know exactly what Derek did, and I know exactly how to make him pay for it. I'm not running. I'm fighting. I checked into a hotel, then I started documenting everything. I pulled up my text messages with Derek from March 8th, where I'd told him I'd be traveling from March 10th to 24th. I pulled up my bank records showing my April rent payment on March 9th. I pulled up my plane tickets showing departure March 10th and return March 24th. I had documentary proof that I'd notified Derek of my travel dates. I'd paid my rent on time. I'd been gone exactly 14 days, not over a month. I'd returned exactly when I said I would. Derek's claim of abandonment was provably false. Next, I contacted Carlos, the building manager. I'd always been kind to Carlos, tipping him generously at holidays. Carlos, I need your help. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Carlos felt guilty. Marion, I'm so sorry. Derek told us you'd abandoned the apartment. He said you'd been gone 6 weeks with no contact. He showed us a letter he claimed to have sent you at the apartment, saying if you didn't respond within 30 days, he'd assume abandonment. Did you see proof he sent that letter? No, he just showed us a copy. He said he'd sent it certified mail. Carlos, I was gone exactly 2 weeks. Derek lied to you. Carlos looked sick. I knew something felt wrong. You've always been the best tenant. You always paid on time. It didn't make sense that you'd just abandon everything. Will you testify to what Derek told you? Carlos hesitated. Derek's my boss. Derek broke the law, Carlos. What he did is a felony. I'm going to sue him and file criminal charges. You can either testify truthfully or become complicit in his crimes. Carlos nodded. I'll testify. What he did was wrong. I also spoke to the crew Derek hired to empty my apartment. I found them through the building's security footage. Derek's own cameras had recorded everything. The crew leader, Miguel, confirmed. We were hired to empty apartment 3B. The landlord said the tenant abandoned it. We threw everything in the dumpster. Furniture, clothes, boxes, everything. We filled a 30-yard dumpster completely. Did the landlord have a court order authorizing the eviction? No. He just said the tenant was gone, and he needed the unit emptied fast. Everything Derek had done was documented, recorded, provable. Next, I filed actions in multiple venues simultaneously. 1. Civil lawsuit in Superior Court. I filed a lawsuit against Derek Sullivan for illegal eviction, self-help eviction, conversion, theft of property, trespass, intentional infliction of emotional distress, elder abuse, violation of California Civil Code, sections governing landlord-tenant relations, damages sought $250,000, value of destroyed property plus punitive, damages sought $250,000, value of destroyed property plus punitive damages. 2. Criminal complaint with Oakland police. I filed a police report for theft. Derek stole and destroyed $43,000 worth of my property. Elder abuse, targeting a 78-year-old tenant. Fraud, lying about abandonment to justify illegal eviction. 3. Complaint with California Attorney General. Elder abuse by landlords is taken seriously in California. I filed a formal complaint detailing Derek's actions. 4th complaint with Oakland Rent Board. Illegal eviction from rent-controlled housing. The rent board has authority to impose significant penalties. Derek thought he could illegally evict an elderly tenant and face no consequences. He forgot his elderly tenant was a retired Superior Court judge who knew exactly which agencies to contact and which laws he'd violated. Within 2 weeks, Derek was being investigated by 4 different entities. The civil lawsuit moved quickly. Because I'd been a judge, I knew exactly how to plead a case for maximum effect. My complaint included timeline proving I'd notified Derek of my travel proof of rent, payment plane tickets, proving 14-day absence, not abandonment, text messages between Derek and me, testimony from Carlos building manager security footage showing Derek's crew removing my property, itemized list of destroyed property with estimated values. Derek hired an attorney. His defense was predictable. Miss Blackwell abandoned the apartment. My client followed proper procedures. My attorney, a former clerk I'd mentored, destroyed that defense in the response brief. Defendant claims abandonment, yet plaintiff paid rent on time before leaving. Notified defendant of exact travel dates, returned exactly when stated, was absent only 14 days. Defendant changed locks and disposed of plaintiff's property without court order, proper notice, storage of belongings, as required by law. Any legitimate basis for claiming abandonment. Furthermore, plaintiff is a 78-year-old retired Superior Court judge. Defendant's actions constitute elder abuse under California law. This is a textbook illegal eviction. The judge assigned to my case was Judge Raymond Mitchell. I knew him. We'd served together for 15 years before I retired. At the preliminary hearing, Judge Mitchell looked at Derek's attorney with barely concealed contempt. Counselor, your client changed the locks on a rent-controlled apartment and threw away a 78-year-old tenant's belongings while she was visiting her daughter for 2 weeks. She'd notified him of her travel dates and paid her rent on time. On what possible legal theory are you defending this? Derek's attorney stammered. Your Honor, my client believed the apartment was abandoned. Believed based on what? The tenant notified him she'd be gone 2 weeks. She was gone 2 weeks. She paid rent. Where's the abandonment? Your Honor, my client sent a notice to an apartment he knew was temporarily vacant because the tenant told him she'd be traveling. That's not proper notice. Did your client attempt to contact Ms. Blackwell by phone, email, or at her daughter's address? I don't believe so, Your Honor. So your client deliberately sent notice to an address he knew the tenant wouldn't receive, then used that as justification to illegally evict her and destroy her property. Counselor, you're trying to defend the indefensible. Judge Mitchell set a trial date, but strongly encouraged settlement. Meanwhile, the criminal investigation was progressing. Oakland police detectives interviewed Derek. His story kept changing. First, she abandoned the apartment. Then, I thought she'd abandoned it. Then, I sent proper notice. Finally, maybe I moved too quickly, but I had a right to reclaim my property. Detectives obtained Derek's phone records. He'd never attempted to call me during my absence. He'd never sent an email, the certified mail notice he claimed to have sent. There was no record of it at the post office. Derek had fabricated the abandonment claim to justify illegally evicting a rent-controlled tenant so he could re-rent at market rate. That's fraud. That's theft. That's elder abuse. In June 2022, the Alameda County District Attorney filed criminal charges: grand theft, destroying property worth over $43,000, elder abuse, fraud, illegal, eviction, misdemeanor that can be elevated based on circumstances. Derek was arrested at his home. His mugshot made the local news. Oakland landlord arrested for illegally evicting 78-year-old former judge. The publicity was devastating for Derek. Other tenants in his 7 buildings started coming forward with complaints. Turns out Derek had a pattern. He'd illegally evicted 3 other elderly tenants over the past 2 years, using similar tactics. Tenant goes on vacation. Derek claims abandonment, changes locks, disposes of belongings, re-rents at higher rate. He'd been systematically targeting elderly rent-controlled tenants. The district attorney amended the charges to include those 3 cases. Now Derek faced multiple counts of elder abuse, fraud, and illegal eviction. My civil trial began in August 2022. I testified first. I notified Mr. Sullivan of my exact travel dates. I paid my rent on time. I was gone precisely 14 days as stated. When I returned, my apartment was empty and my possessions destroyed. Everything I owned, furniture, clothing, family photos, irreplaceable heirlooms, gone, thrown in a dumpster. I itemized the destroyed property: furniture, $8,500, electronics and appliances, $3,200, clothing and personal items, $4,800, jewelry, including wedding rings, $12,000, photo albums and family documents, irreplaceable, estimated $5,000 books. I had a large legal library, $6,500 kitchen items, and household goods, $3,000. Total documented value, $43,000, but the emotional value was incalculable. Photos of my late husband, letters from my children, family heirlooms passed down through generations, all gone. Carlos testified about Derek's instructions to empty the apartment. Miguel, the crew leader, testified about throwing everything in the dumpster. Derek took the stand. His attorney tried to portray him as a landlord dealing with a difficult situation. Mr. Sullivan, why did you believe Ms. Blackwell had abandoned the apartment? She'd been gone over a month. My attorney objected. Your Honor, that's demonstrably false. Ms. Blackwell was absent exactly 14 days, as proven by plane tickets and text messages. Judge Mitchell sustained the objection. The witness will answer truthfully or face perjury charges. Derek's face went red. His attorney tried again. Mr. Sullivan, did you attempt to contact Ms. Blackwell before emptying the apartment? I sent notice to the apartment. Did you attempt to call her, email her, or contact her at her daughter's address? No. Why not? I didn't have her daughter's contact information. My attorney produced the text exchange. Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Blackwell gave you her contact information, including her daughter's phone number. You chose not to use it, correct? Derek had no answer. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Verdict: Derek Sullivan was liable for illegal eviction, theft of property, elder abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Damages awarded $43,000 for destroyed property, plus $175,000 in punitive damages for elder abuse, plus $32,000 in attorney fees. Total, $250,000. Derek's face went white. His attorney immediately filed an appeal, but the criminal trial was still coming. The criminal trial began in October 2022. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. 4 elderly victims, including me, pattern of illegal evictions documented, lies about abandonment, financial motive, re-renting at higher rates. No proper legal procedures followed in any case. Derek's defense tried to argue misunderstanding and good faith belief in abandonment. The prosecution destroyed that. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Sullivan is a real estate investor who owns 7 rental properties. He understands landlord-tenant law. He chose to ignore it because following the law would have cost him money. He targeted elderly tenants because he believed they wouldn't fight back. He committed fraud, theft, and elder abuse for profit. The jury convicted Derek on all counts: 4 counts of elder abuse, 4 counts of grand theft, 4 counts of fraud, multiple misdemeanor, illegal eviction charges. Sentencing was in December 2022. All 4 victims gave impact statements. I spoke last. Your Honor, I am a retired Superior Court judge. I spent 31 years on the bench, 23 years hearing landlord-tenant cases. I know the law. I know my rights. And I was still victimized by Mr. Sullivan's deliberate, calculated crimes. Derek Sullivan knew what he was doing was illegal. He did it anyway because he thought elderly tenants wouldn't fight back. He destroyed my property, violated my home, and treated me as disposable. But I'm not disposable. None of us are. I asked the court to impose a sentence that reflects the seriousness of these crimes and protects other elderly tenants from predators like Derek Sullivan. The judge was stern. Mr. Sullivan, you committed systematic elder abuse. You targeted vulnerable elderly tenants, violated their legal rights, and destroyed their property for financial gain. You showed no remorse. You lied under oath. You continued to portray yourself as a victim of difficult tenants, rather than acknowledging your criminal behavior. I'm sentencing you to 1 year in county jail, 3 years probation, and full restitution to all victims. You are also permanently banned from owning or managing rental property in California. Derek was handcuffed and taken into custody immediately. 1 year in jail, permanent ban from the rental property business. $250,000 owed to me. Restitution to 3 other victims, totaling another $180,000. Derek's real estate empire collapsed. He was forced to sell his 7 properties to pay restitution and legal fees. His net worth went from approximately $3 million to negative. He owed more than he owned. His wife divorced him while he was in jail. After Derek was sentenced, I used part of my $250,000 judgment to establish a legal aid fund for elderly tenants facing illegal eviction. The Marion Blackwell Tenant Rights Fund provides free legal representation to elderly tenants victimized by predatory landlords. I also volunteer with the Oakland Rent Board, educating elderly tenants about their rights. I'm Marion Blackwell, retired Superior Court judge. I was illegally evicted and had everything I owned destroyed. If it can happen to a judge, it can happen to anyone. Here's what you need to know. I teach elderly tenants. Landlords cannot change locks without a court order. Landlords cannot remove your belongings without proper legal process. Brief absences, even weeks or months, are not abandonment. If rent is paid, landlords must provide proper written notice before any eviction. Illegal eviction is a crime. Report it immediately. Derek Sullivan served his full year in county jail. He was released in December 2023. At 79, I'm living in a new apartment, this time in a building with a reputable management company. I've rebuilt my life, replacing some of what I lost. I can never replace the photos of my late husband, the letters from my children when they were young, the family heirlooms passed down through generations. Those losses are permanent. That pain remains. But Derek Sullivan learned a hard lesson. You don't illegally evict a retired judge. Some people ask me, Marion, how did you have the strength to fight back so quickly after losing everything? Because I'm a judge. I spent 3 decades dispensing justice. When someone violated my rights, I knew exactly how to use the law to destroy them. Derek thought elderly tenants are powerless, confused, won't fight back. He was wrong. I'm Marion Blackwell. I'm 78 years old. My landlord illegally evicted me, changed my locks, and threw away everything I owned. $43,000 in property, irreplaceable family heirlooms, a lifetime of memories. He thought I was just another elderly tenant who'd accept it and move on. He forgot I was a Superior Court judge who spent 31 years ruling on landlord-tenant law. I sued him. I filed criminal charges. I testified at trial. I brought 3 other victims forward. He got 1 year in jail, permanently banned from rental property, forced to pay $430,000 in restitution, and lost his entire real estate business. His $3 million net worth became negative. His wife left him. His reputation is destroyed. And I created a legal fund to help other elderly tenants destroy landlords like him. Derek wanted to illegally evict a judge. I gave him a masterclass in why you never, ever violate a judge's legal rights. Justice served. The end. Subscribe for tenant rights. Justice.